Welcome to this brief introductory session on using R for social work research. Our plan is to do a series, a brief series of how you can use R in the work that you do, the statistical work that you do. So my name is Jerry Bean. I'm an adjunct faculty member at the College of Social Work at Ohio State. And this is in some ways my R story. Interestingly enough, I'll explain as we get into it. So I hope this is helpful, and there will be more to come. Count on that. Taking a look at actually how you can use R in some of the work that you might be interested in doing. So those modules will be coming. So without further ado, let's get started. I found this little I guess meme in some ways, or present a sort of picture that typifies what I think happens to people, and I've been at this long enough to know that it happens on a regular basis. And what I mean by what happens is that we often find into in the statistical world, software tools that become our go-to. We learn them, we invest time in them, and basically they are the core set of tools that we use. And I wouldn't say that that's bad, but I would say that in some ways that occurrence can limit possibilities of other tools that might be available to you. And this is very definitely, you can see there, I've been guilty of this, and without question, I've been guilty. And I'm trying to, a kind of goal of my efforts to introduce R is to say there are other options that you might consider in the quantitative work that you do. And you might find R to be a helpful tool in that regard. So anyway, if the only tool you have is a hammer and you see everything as a nail, which I didn't realize was Abraham Maslow, is kind of is sort of the what they call the law of the hammer in some ways, and so we want to break out of the law of the hammer if we possibly can. So this is my brief R story. You can see the bullet points here, and I'll try not to read them. You can kind of look them over. So a few years back, I got really interested in item response theory methods, and which are extremely helpful as an extremely helpful framework for looking at social work measurement scales and tools. Basically, item response. We won't get. Maybe we'll have a demonstration on how to do item response theory as part of our our sequence here. It might actually be quite helpful. Item response theory, got on my radar. I said I need to learn about it, and I needed some tools to help me with that. So it turns out that M Plus has a item response theory framework in it, and also there's a freestanding program called IRT Pro, which is available. So you can see that M Plus was just difficult to use actually, and IRT Pro program was actually expensive. Although I do spend a lot of money on software, but I just the problem with the IRT program was especially it locked you into too many ways of doing things, didn't provide any flexibility. So I started to look around for other tools and discovered R and the MERT and LTM packages, and we'll actually, by the time we're done here, you'll know all about packages and how you get them and how you install them and how you use them. So I discovered MERT and LTM, and it turned out It turned out they have a fairly steep learning curve, but once you sort of figure them out, the statistical and graphic capabilities were really outstanding. And the nice thing about the packages, and it's true of the entire R world, is that it was free, and the capacities actually were much more flexible than M Plus and IRT Pro. So the more I dug into it, as you can see there, the more I dug into using R in the work that I was doing, the more I really said, this is for me, basically. So really quick overview. There's a ton of literature on R and where it came from, but it's very popular. I'll show you on the next slide. It was introduced in the early 1990s by some professors in New Zealand, interestingly enough, who needed tools for teaching stats, and so they started to develop the R environment. They didn't start, they did it. So it's an extension of the S Plus family. Actually, there are some programs that that Bill Cleveland developed at the Bell Labs that are really sort of precursors of this. So R isn't entirely ground up, but it's very, it mimics S Plus in some ways, but it is, they designed it as free, and it just took off. Basically, they sort of embraced the idea of open source. Software open source literally means that you can get the source code for the package. You can, in fact, get it. They do make you jump through some hoops, and I'm not at all interested. I'm not that skilled in programming, but you can actually get it and tailor it. So it's really sort of interesting. And I can guarantee you that you'll never get your hands on the source code for SPSS or M Plus or SAS or any of the proprietary programs. It would be like they would never let that happen. So interesting. I found this article in, it's a little bit dated, 2018, I think is the date of it. Yeah, there it is in the bottom. And you can see that R follows SPSS very closely, at least in the published world. You can see that see if I can get a pointer here. You can see that these are publications, so, SPSS pretty high, followed by R, then SAS and Stata or Stata, and then you can just kind of go down the list of things. I'm also a big fan of Systat, so I like it, but you can see that R is right up there. My suspicion is that this would start to be growing now if we were to update this. I'm hypothesizing that to be true, and I have no interest in doing it, but it is a very popular package. I can attest to that. So, which is what I say here. So R does have broad-based appeal. I keep forgetting what I have on my next slides. So it does have broad-based appeal. It's very popular in universities. Many universities have gone to it as a kind of default package, although most universities still do their site licensing of the other major packages. Too many users are interested in those packages, so they're, Ohio State, for example, will never get rid of SAS and SPSS, I'm assuming. It's also very popular in the business world. Lots of companies have gotten out of the SAS business and have moved into the R business. So anyway, it has broad-based appeals. And if you're interested in possibilities, I'm not sure where you might be headed in your training or your career or your work after your experience here at the college, it could be an issue that, it could be a skill that might be marketable for you. So So it does have this open source philosophy, and there's a great deal of development activity going on. People contribute packages. You can see there are 12,000. I did this presentation a year or so ago, and my suspicion is it's probably grown since. So tons of packages, which I see as sort of a blessing and a curse. With that many packages, it sometimes can take a little work to find the specific package that you want for your specific task. But there are some guides to do that. You wouldn't be you're not entirely in the dark in terms of guidance about maybe a package that would suit your needs. In addition, it has built-in statistical and graphical capabilities that are quite nice, but it really gets its leverage and its breadth of coverage through the packages that get contributed. Nice thing about it is it's cross-platform. It's available for Windows and Mac and Linux. I think those are the three major platforms that mostly we'll run into in the college. I use both Windows and Mac in the work that I do, like them both, and I sort of consider myself to be ambidextrous, I guess, in the terms of platform computing, and it works really very well on either. I have not gone to any Linux platforms, which are actually, I think, quite popular, but I haven't really had the need to learn yet another thing. So this is maybe a little hyperbolic, but I think this is really true. If using R, I can do any data analysis tasks that I did using other commercial products, and I've used them all. I've used SPSS, Stat, SAS, Stat, EQS, and plus IRT Pro. I'll put that Cetra down. I can't remember any others, but basically I have used all of those packages in one form or another, and I can tell you now that you can do anything in R that you do in those other packages. In some ways you can do it more flexibly and better. Although there is one thing, and when we get into this you'll have to get used to it, and that is that the output you get from R in the console is sometimes not necessarily as nicely formatted as the outputs in the commercial packages. Typically their output is a little nicer, but you just sort of get used to it. So I love the idea that it facilitates replication, reproducibility, and open science values, and it totally does. R is very much in the world of open sharing of resources, and really is a kind of foundational from the standpoint that you can actually share your work with other people using R. I do it all the time. I'll give you some links. That's in one of the other presentations about the documents and analyses that I've done using R and RStudio, which really people have been interested in. I wouldn't say that that it's like a groundswell, but I can tell you that every week I get emails from people literally around the world who have seen some of the publications that I posted in RPubs and GitHub, it's really very interesting and exciting. And then lastly, I put down there, and probably most importantly, could be most importantly, depending on where you end up, it's free, and it is free. There is literally no charge for any of the R base product or any of the packages. They are completely free for your use. So a couple things about R that you need to be aware of. I won't lie, it has a steep learning curve. It doesn't handhold you. You do have to use you'll end up having to learn some programming syntax. It doesn't have the nice little menu-driven interfaces that some of the commercial packages have. Although there are some third-party interfaces that you can use, I just have not decided to do that. So you're going to have to learn, the syntax of R, and how you can, do things using that syntax. And I think it chases people away sometimes. But if you stick with it, once you get it figured out, there are some conventions and a kind of logic, and it's a object-oriented programming world. So once you figure out that objects have attributes that you can fool with, it really starts to make sense. If that made sense, I hope it did. But we'll show you that when we get into the actual hands-on thing. It may feel a little bit like a Wild West, is my sort of terminology for it, and that is that some of the package documentation can be uneven. Our home base that we'll see in a minute does require a certain framework for documentation, but I find sometimes that I have to do a little additional searching to figure out what a particular package can do and how it can get it done. So you have to put up with that. Basically, there is a nice help system in it, and you can take advantage of that. So, and what's going to happen with you, like I suspect it happens to me, you're going to use R for a particular, sort of analysis or analysis framework, something, maybe survey research, maybe measurement research, maybe structural equation modeling, maybe confirmatory factor analysis, those kinds of things. So once you get that sort of specialized focus, that will guide you. You can learn all you need really about that, that particular area. So it really works out. I hope I don't scare anybody away, but you just have to, it's like learning anything new. You just have to get after it and practice. You can see there that the 12,000, probably more packages are a blessing and a curse. Lots of packages, but holy cow, I got to figure out all those packages. So anyway, you need to know that going in. Some of you who've used R can probably attest to this already, and maybe you figured it out. You might be smarter than me and figured it out quickly, and that certainly often happens. But that's my caution. I'm very happy with it now, though, as you can probably tell. I mean, it's really a super helpful tool. I really do say this for people who are getting maybe interested in R, that if you have a software package or two that does all you need, then maybe you don't really need R. And if in your training you're going to end up going to another university and they're going to have M+ or SPSS or whatever it may be, maybe you don't care about R. I mean, honestly, you get the same answers. Mostly to at least some decimal point, whether you use R or SPSS. Often it's really exactly the same. This menu-based graphic user interface can be quite helpful. SPSS. SPSS does have a syntax, so you can actually learn how to program. And Stata and Systata all have syntaxes, but mainly the menu-based GUI is what people end up using, and it makes it a little bit easier to do. So, but if you want to add to your toolkit, and if you're not going to be in a university, if you're going to be out in the applied world, you're going to find pretty quickly that it may be an agency that you might be working for and going to pony up for. Won't pony up for the tens of thousands of dollars that SPSS or Stata. Actually, Stata is not that expensive. That might cost. So anyway, you might want to do that, and to beat the whole open source, open science, data sharing, commitment to replication, and reproducible science. Those are the values also that I like that might make it attractive to you. So I hope I've sold it to some extent with some cautions, basically. So. All right, so how do you get R? It's very easy. There's a site that you can see down at the bottom called the R Project, and it looks like this. Although this is a little bit older. It's the R version that you see there is has been updated. It updates about every 6 months or so. So I'm not sure of the release, but it all looks the same, and they do releases and some improvements and things, but they're for the most part not necessarily obvious to you. If you update, you can run the same code that you developed in one version in another version. It's really pretty versatile in that regard. So you can get it by going to a CRAN. I think I have that on the next page. Yeah, these are CRANs, Comprehensive R Network Archive sites that you can go to, and you can see they're worldwide. I usually go to the Case Western Reserve site, which is down the page under US. There are some, I don't know, 10 or 12 or 15 US sites basically. And they're mirror sites, so when people who maintain R and the packages basically when they get updated, they typically are mirrored to the CRANs. Essentially, it's a mirroring process that you can see, and so what you download from the University of Science and Technology, you can see at the top there. You get the same thing that you get from Case Western Reserve, if that makes sense. So it's really they have a pretty good quality control process. Actually, it works very well. I just updated my version. I don't necessarily always update versions, but I just thought it was about time to do that. So once you get to the CRAN, it's gonna, I can't remember which window comes first, but you can see these are the download links, and you can click on the one that's suitable for you. You won't get source code. You want the binaries and these files basically. So they come already compiled and ready to run. So they'll download and install, and you'll be off and running. It really they work very nicely, and you can see there's a Mac version and Windows version, and the Mac version works on the most recent Mac version. I just had occasion to take a look, make sure that was true, and I've got a Mac with the most recent. I can't remember what OS is called now. I have a little trouble following Apple's designations, but it is the most current, and R will run in it. So if you're a Mac person, it works very nicely. It works in Windows 11 too. I have a Windows 11 computer, that actually the one I'm doing a presentation on, and it works just fine. So anyway, you just download it, and it will install it. Really nicely. I'm sure most of you have done installations. I don't know if you're using college computers, you might have to make sure your permissions are set. Richard would probably do that if he's still working there. He can set it up so you can install R. He might even be able to do it through a mass installation. I think he's pretty good at that stuff, so I don't pretend to understand it. So once you get it and you open it up, you get this, and this is what's called the R console, and you can see what it looks like, and you get down here to a little arrow, and you pretty much go, okay, what do I do now? Which is exactly what happened to me when I started it. So I don't know how many people actually use R in its native native version, but it's really a pain to use it from here. So if you get here, and you go like, what next? Type in help with a question mark, and it will give you help. Then what next can be a little confusing. So in an answer to that, actually, there is a terrific product that I'm going to show you in a little more detail in the next incarnation or iteration, I guess, of the next presentation, Jesus, where we're going to actually use this product, which is called RStudio, and it's an IDE, integrated development environment for R. And I wouldn't use R if I didn't have RStudio. I can guarantee you that. So depending on I think this is the default. There are 4 panes. This is where you actually develop your R scripts, your programming stuff. These are all commands for R. The environment pane is where you actually see what's going on, mainly when we get into this, you'll see you can kind of track your objects, and it does a ton of things. I'll show you, but mainly you can kind of keep track of the objects that are open, which can be helpful. This is actually the console down here, so this is what you see when you start up R. And this is where the results get displayed. So when you run code here, the results are displayed down here. I'm going to show you all that. And then this pane is the files pane. And this is where you manage your packages. And it's got a viewer for any plotting that you'll do. And I'm going to show you that. And if you're developing, if you use a product called Bookdown, I think other programs list files as well, but you can end up with files. So these are the packages that are in my user library right now, basically, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is, it's helpful. It's kind of busy, and I don't know how much time you want to spend on it, but definitely installing and managing packages will be a skill that you'll have to develop in. It's just made so easy using this in this pane, essentially. So using RStudio, you can develop scripts, run analyses, keep track of things, create graphs that get displayed here. It's just as cool as can be. Also, RStudio comes with 2 other things here. Actually, I guess this is the next slide. So I started talking about this already. And what I want to emphasize here is that R has a markdown language, which is an markup language. It's like the markup language that that you get in hypertext in websites and stuff. They call it markdown for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but it's so interesting to use our markdown to create reports and documents. I'm going to actually show you how to do that. It really much of the stuff that I put on RPubs, which is a site where I upload and sort of publish with a small p the documents that I think are helpful for people, are all done in R Markdown, and I'm actually going to show you how to do that. It really is super helpful, and you can do HTML documents and PDF documents and PowerPoints. There are a number of output possibilities that are really pretty cool. And the RStudio link, the RStudio home, is where you can actually put some of the documents that you create. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but it's really super cool. Just one more time, RStudio, and you get RStudio by, I guess, the link is here. This is the RStudio link, and you can go get the current version. It's free, as you would expect. There are some commercial products, but I wouldn't bother with a commercial product. Just do the RStudio desktop for your computing environment. There's Mac 1 and there's Windows 1. Windows version that you can use, and it's really pretty helpful. So these tools, Getting R and Getting R Studio, really get you in the business of being ready to do analyses in R. And you can get started on that if you're interested in using R. Kind of get started there in anticipation of the next presentation that I'm going to do, which is to really take a look at how you use R and R Studio to do some analyses. Actually, I'll probably give you another guided tour, but it will be live. This is just a screenshot, basically, so we'll do it live, and that might be helpful. So lastly, tons, I don't know, a million, maybe not, maybe lots, hundreds of R resources just all over. If you do a little search on R in Amazon, you'll end up with, quite a few books on it. I love this book. This is Robert Kabakoff's book on R in Action, and I can guarantee you that it's wonderful. It does have a third edition, and I can tell you right now, I would avoid the third edition. The second edition is really helpful, and the fact is that things don't change all that much, so the second edition would be as relevant today as it was. I think it was, maybe this edition was 2015 or 16, but I can guarantee you right now, I use it all the time, that the guidance that he gives in various tasks and activities in this manual are really worth it. And if you can get a steal on it, maybe a secondhand version from somewhere on Amazon for $5, I'm going to guarantee you that it's well worth the $5 to get it. And when I'm doing stuff and I have to do reports or I'm doing an analysis, it's right on my desk, and I go to it all the time. So that's pretty much it for this overview. Hopefully it was helpful and convince you maybe that R is the way to go. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, that you're interested. So, and hopefully this piqued your interest a little bit more. So look forward to some additional. I haven't quite decided how many I'm going to do. Probably at least two more presentations on R. One will be that sort of basic overview, and I'm thinking I might do something with maybe item response theory or CFA or SEM. I could actually show you some documents that will be helpful. Maybe I'll do those links as well. So anyway, that's it for now. And sorry it went a little longer than I expected, but hopefully it'll be helpful. So see you next time.